Patrick Cook here. Hey, thanks for joining me in the next session of our Mandelbulb 3D Tutorial Series. As you probably already know by now, just as a reminder, what we're trying to do here is to step through the building of a high-quality Mandelbulb 3D animation. And in the process of building this animation, we're taking this opportunity to discuss the various features and functionality, as well as the caveat and the idiosyncrasies of the Mandelbulb 3D software application. Now, if you haven't already done so, we've already done 25 sessions of this Mandelbulb 3D Tutorial Series. And if you're coming in late, I really do encourage you to go back, start from session number 1, and work your way up. Because as I move forward here in this tutorial series, I'm getting more and more advanced and introducing topics that we haven't really talked about in a more of a fundamental way. In some cases, I'll just dive in really deep, making the assumption that you have viewed and you understood the more fundamental, the more basic aspects of the various features and functionality of the Mandelbulb 3D software. Now, with that said, let's move on. In the last session, I left the Mandelbulb 3D in a state where I have removed the colors from the Mandelbulb graphic. And as I explained in the previous session, certainly you can go back and review that session if you like. But just in review, I feel that I really am more focused in developing the graphic patterns than I am in developing the graphic colors. If I don't get the pattern where I want it, the colors don't really make any sense. They aren't contributing to the process of building your animation. As a matter of fact, they could actually be very distracting because the coloring in the Mandelbulb 3D environment tends to be related to the z-axis. So you could have a color, you could have a green sitting here, you go change the Mandelbulb and you throw off say the scale, and now you may have the green over here, all right, at a whole different location, or the green may be entirely gone. So because coloring in this 3D fractal environment has a close relationship with the z-axis, you could find yourself doing a lot of coloring of your fractal object. You make a slight change to the structure of the fractal object, and now your coloring is all thrown off. So the rule of thumb that I work with is I go for the pattern, the structure, the scale of the fractal object itself, and then I concern myself with color, and then of course I concern myself thereafter with lighting. And lighting and color are somewhat related, but I kind of think of them differently. You got your coloring and you got your lighting, and then of course you move on to your still and or your animation. So I like to pursue the project in that order. Now let's do this. Let's continue then in building our fractal environment. And again, now we're working toward our model of this. All right, this is only our model. We're probably not going to get exactly what we have here, because I didn't save any of the parameter settings. This is something I kind of discovered a couple weeks ago and kind of passed through it and said, oh, that's nice. And then I got to thinking, that would actually make an interesting animation. Then I got to thinking, why not make a tutorial series while I'm rebuilding or building the animation? So that's what we're at. So that's our target. That's our graphical target. All right, now back to the Mandelbulb environment again. Now I'm working on my fractal pattern, and this is what I have. Okay, so now what's the next step? Okay, I think the next step for this project here, now that the colors have been removed, I think the next step is to navigate and get myself into a kind of a view that I think is interesting. Now, what I want to do here is I want a view that shows a lot of perspective. It gives a sense of depth. It is almost epic, because what I want to do is I want to be able to animate through it. You know, there's all kinds of ways of animating a Mandelbulb 3D. I could actually have a stationary camera, stationary with respect to the fractal object, camera, object, and I could move the fractal object. I could do it that way. I could animate that. I can also animate a fractal object by changing its properties. So I might change its properties, okay? All right. And you can make some very interesting animations with the Mandelbulb 3D software. I can also move, change the properties, and change the camera. That gets pretty interesting. That's pretty sophisticated animation keyframing, but you can do that too. The other thing you can do is to have a static, I'm going to say fractal object, but more of a static fractal environment, and then move your camera through the environment. Okay, move it through. Yeah, sometimes that's called a fly through. Sometimes I'll call it a fly about. All right. In this particular project, what I want to do is I want to have a Mandelbulb 3D fractal environment, a large environment, and I want to move my camera through that environment. That's what I want for this particular project. Now that animation technique is not necessarily more hard or more easy than the other methods. So, again, all right, I can have a stationary camera. I can move the object. I can have a stationary camera, and I can just change the properties of the fractal. I could have a stationary camera, and I could move the fractal and change its properties. That gets pretty interesting. All right. Or I could have a stationary object, and I can move the camera. Or I can have a fractal environment, and I can move the camera through it, around it, that sort of thing. So there's different ways that you can construct an animation. Again, now, so what I've decided to do for this particular project, this animation project, is I want to have a large almost, what shall we say, a large vista, a large scene, and I want to move my camera through that scene. That's what I've chosen to do. All right, so I've gabbed the whole session away. Let's end this particular session. When we pick it up again, I'm going to start navigating through the fractal environment that we have. I promise. I'll see you there.